Vaccines and diseases have been around long before the COVID-19 pandemic was even conceived or thought of as a possibility. I personally am a vaccinated individual and have not received any symptoms or the COVID-19 disease at all, thus learning the importance and credibility of vaccines. With the world currently in a pandemic that doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon, I figured now would be a good time to learn a lesson about vaccines, their credibility, their backstory, and where they came from. In this speech, I will be commending you, Dr. Edward Jenner, on your creation of the smallpox vaccine and your potential saving of millions of lives, so for that we thank you. First off, beginning with the history of Edward Jenner, edwardjenner.ac.uk gives us plenty of information about his adolescent life, from birth all the way to the creation of the first vaccine. He was born in Berkeley, Gloucestershire, and was the 8th child of 9 children, so his odds of success weren't super high given that he was in a big family, but never zero. At a young age, he was appointed the role of the apprentice to Mr. Ludlow, a scientist from whom he learned all of his scientific information and eventually applied to create the smallpox vaccine. As a young child, he was actually exposed to smallpox, and so during this time he was exposed to smallpox, he figured that he did not want the rest of the world to have to go through what he had to endure, so he decided to make a name for himself and decided to make sure that the rest of the world did not actually have to deal with this disease just the same way that he did. In doing so, he figured out that cowpox actually combats smallpox, so if you have cowpox, there's no way you can get smallpox. He found this whenever he decided to test on a diseased part of an 8-year-old boy's hand. That 8-year-old boy had smallpox on his hand, and when cowpox was put on it, he realized that there was no way that the child would actually have smallpox anymore. Immune.org tells us that the first ever recorded vaccine was actually done on a 13-year-old boy. So the 13-year-old boy had smallpox, and when injected with cowpox, it was actually dissipated and he had no traces of smallpox whatsoever. This led Dr. Edward Jenner to eventually begin a worldwide spread of cowpox in order to combat smallpox disease. The inspiration we can learn from Edward Jenner is incredible, both scientific and just regular inspiration. The NCBI website tells us that Jenner's work was the first official attempt to suppress any sort of diseases. Again, we have both scientific and regular inspiration, so we realize that science could be brought even further, and it could be learned and it could be taught. Thank you, Dr. Edward Jenner, for showing us that science is never ending, science is always growing, science can always be developed further. We can also find regular inspiration from Dr. Edward Jenner, thanks to his bravery and his confidence in himself. So thank you, Dr. Edward Jenner, for believing in yourself and creating a smallpox vaccine that saved millions of lives and potentially stopped the disease from entering today's day and age, because we're already dealing with enough. Your creation of the vaccine all the way back in 1892 led to today creating vaccines at one after the other in order to combat the COVID-19 disease that we have ongoing right now. To you, Dr. Edward Jenner, we would like to say thank you for your contributions to society. Thank you for having faith in yourself. Thank you for creating something so beautiful, something so strong. Thank you for not only creating said vaccine, but also choosing to fight something that has the potential to wipe out all of society and all of humanity. So we thank you, and we're inspired by you to continue pushing our studies further for vaccines and to continue learning why we could get vaccines and why vaccines are actually important to our health. We now know their credibility thanks to you, and we just give all the thanks to you, Edward Jenner, for the vaccines that we have today and the vaccines that we had back then. Thank you very much. We appreciate it more than you'll ever know.